hopefully it's fairly straightforward. It basically is just like finish everything that's not already done. And then ideally you'd incorporate any feedback from crits into your submission for next week. So in like 10 seconds, at the end of class, I'll upload all of the crit recordings to the YouTube so you can reference them. I'll also give you guys crit in feedback when I grade stuff. I basically just put in these questions here to sort of remind yourself of, I guess, sort of a checklist of things to look for. So just like sampling, are there any like weird stuff with texturing? Does the room look empty in certain areas, etc.? Pretty much stuff that I've all gone over in last week's. I just sort of put it here as another reminder. And then you should, by the time your final comes in, incorporate your teammates' objects into your scenes. I'll send out another email about that, either tonight or tomorrow or very early Wednesday. But that's basically it for what you're doing. Just finish stuff and then render. For the renders, excuse me. So if you have made any changes to your hero object or the textures for the hero object since you did the last turntable, please render that out again, as much as painful as that would be, and submit that with your assignment. If you have made no changes, then just resubmit your turntable with the rest of your stuff. And then this is the stuff that I sort of, I guess, meant to link last week and didn't super do that. But basically, you're going to do a few renders of the whole environment and a few renders of the object itself. So for the in-environment renders, you're going to do basically choose at least 4 different camera angles showing off your objects, and then render each camera angle from both your day and your night lighting. So I want the exact same camera angle with 2 different lightings rendered in it. Does that make sense? Cool. So for each of those camera angles, these are the requirements. Basically, one must show the hero object, and it has to be the one that you made. And ideally, you would do that in an interesting way that, shows off either like the modeling or texturing. And then you should have one render for your furniture and decorative objects, again, the ones that you made. For this one, I don't care, like if your furniture object is on the other side of the room from your decorative object, you can do one render of just your furniture and one render of just your decorative. You can also, if they're like, your decorative is sitting on top of your furniture, you can just do one render for both, and that's totally fine. I would just like them to be displayed in at least one render, so that you can actually see the stuff that you did. Apart from that, so that's either 2 to 3 images that are going to show your main 3 objects. The last 1 to 2 images, or if you want to do additional ones, are pretty much up to you in terms of how you want to display your room. So usually I would say it's nice to get one of like sort of the whole space, or at least like a good chunk of the space, just to give the viewers an idea of what they're actually looking at. But it's really up to you. And again, if you want to do more or less renders, well, if you want to do more renders, don't do less renders. But if you want to do more, you're welcome to, because I know sometimes I get lost in rendering. It's like kind of fun. But that's pretty much the expectations for the environment renders. So are there any questions about that? Cool. I also just want to, and I noted this in like 7 different places on this, but the final is like the only time during the quarter that I actually care about naming conventions. So under each of these, I've listed naming conventions for them. So for the environment renders, just call it like room underscore day or night, depending on which lighting you're doing, underscore number, like 01, 02, etc. And then I don't care if you use TIFFs or PNGs or whatever, but this is the naming convention that I would like for your environment renders. And again, so for like these guys, I have another naming convention listed down here, which these all have typos in them. But yeah. And then in addition to the environment renders, I would like renders of just the objects themselves. So this is going to be, imagine you're setting up a turntable. You just don't need to render the whole turntable, but like put them in their own little scene in a way that's, visually appealing and like makes sense. And then I don't care if you use TIFFs or PNGs or whatever, but this is the naming convention that I would like for your environment renders. And again, so for like these guys, I have another naming convention listed down here, which these all have typos in them. But yeah. And then in addition to the environment renders, I would like renders of just the objects themselves. So this is going to be, imagine you're setting up a turntable. You just don't need to render the whole turntable, but like put them in their own little scene in a way that's, visually appealing and like makes sense. do nice lighting for each object that shows off, you know, whatever texturing or modeling that you've done on the piece. Ideally, you would, you know, do something more than just like a gray background. Like this is your final, these are like the final renders to like really show off your piece that you can use in portfolio. So ideally, again, if it's a small object, maybe put it on like a little pedestal or something, or put it on like a table. It doesn't need to be crazy fancy, but like do something that looks nice and like you put effort into it. But again, this is like separate scene, not in your environments, just to show off the objects you made. So for that, I would like 2 beautifully lit renders of your hero object. Again, presented in a clean, well-written manner. And at least one of them, ideally, would like show off, again, your whole object, so that people can actually see the thing that you made. If you want to do, your other one is like a close-up on a specific area, or you want to do more renders, again, you're welcome to do that. And then pretty much the same thing for the other ones. One nicely lit render for your furniture object, and one nicely lit render for your decorative object. If you want to throw them into the same scene and use the same lighting as your hero object, you're welcome to, as long as it makes sense for that object. You might need to tailor it. Like, especially if you have like a tiny hero object, like a giant piece of furniture, you're probably going to need to redo lighting for that. But you're welcome to reuse as much stuff as possible for these. And then again, just naming convention down here. Any questions on pretty much any of those renders? That's really the only stuff you have to turn in. Cool. All right, so in terms of what to turn in, just a zip file with, again, whatever your most recent turntable is. So if you made changes to your hero object and stuff, you should re-render that. If not, just resubmit the old one that you submitted a few weeks ago. And then the renders mentioned above. So there should be at least 12 images. Like 8 of them are environment renders, and then 4 of them are just individual like glory shots of each of your 3 main objects. And again, this is the only time I care about naming conventions, which I've listed under pretty much all of the different render specs. And then this is just like a dumb, it totally doesn't need to be fancy. If you can just grab one of your renders, preferably one showing like more of your scene. Heck, this could be a screenshot of your viewport. I really don't super care. But if you could just circle the objects that were made by other people, just so if I'm giving you feedback on stuff, I don't want to like give you a crap ton of a lot of feedback on something that you didn't even make. Because that's not really helpful for you, and that is also kind of a waste of my time. Cough. So again, you can just circle them. It doesn't need to be pretty. I just want to know like what objects you did not make. And if you could also include all of your reference material, or like at least the useful stuff directly pertaining to like lighting and the specific objects you made, that'd be great. And then if you could sort it in a way that makes sense, if that's just like, if you have like 8 different pictures for each of your objects, maybe like organize it by folders. If you have like 2, just do like chair 1, chair 2, and the rest of them. I just want to be able to like find stuff easily. But that is pretty much all you need to turn in. For this one, I specifically do not want or need your Maya directory. If you have specific questions about that, you're welcome to just like shoot me an email with your files and I can take a look at those. But I, again, don't want them or need them for this submission. So are there any questions on the final? Yep.
So the final submission is basically just naming the rendered turntable. There's nothing to do with Maya.
Like in terms of what to submit?
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, I do not want or need Maya files, or texture files, especially texture files. Again, if you have a specific question about like, oh, my texture's exploded, just shoot me an email with the files. If I'm in the labs, you can just throw them on AW Express, I'll grab them from there. But yeah, I do not need them with your actual submission. Any other questions? Alrighty then.